Polluted River. Qianfeng never expected that the place would be the refresh point of the world spine, but even if he knew it before, it would be useless. After all, the extremely dense whispering energy surged in the river, and he couldn't get in at all. Even now, I may not be able to reach the other side by normal means. After entering the water, the whispering energy will become more and more dense, and Qianfeng doesn't know how deep that place is. It is very likely that he will lose his mind halfway through the dive. But now, Qianfeng has a foolproof way. Switch directly to the Abyss World first. In the Abyss World, all the upper affixes are invalid. Qianfeng passes through that section first, and then switches back to the game world. In this way, he can avoid the almost impossible to cross the polluted river. Indeed, if you use the Incarnation Shadow, you should be able to safely pass the polluted river, but he doesn't know what is under the polluted river, and whether it can break the invincible means of the Incarnation Shadow. To be on the safe side, it is safer to go forward from the Abyss World. Anyway, that place is in the wild. Even if there are human figures and monsters, there will not be too many. In addition, Qianfeng also consulted Big Eyes about the information of monsters in the Abyss World. After consuming more than 700 years of life, Qianfeng found relevant information, and because he knew the information about the world reincarnation, he had the right to query. It's awesome. This system also has automatic detection of my knowledge reserve. If you haven't been to the Land of Order and don't know the world reincarnation, you can't query the information about the monsters in the Abyss World. Qianfeng couldn't help complaining. This godforsaken game is too smart. It can automatically detect memory. Anyway, Qianfeng finally learned about the information about the human figures and monsters in the Abyss World. It was just as he guessed. These human figures and monsters in corpse state and completely unconscious are all players who died in every reincarnation of Blue Star before. Their corpses fell into the abyss and became monsters. Most of the skills in life will be disabled, but a small part of the skills will be abyssalized. In general, the monster's strength will be a little stronger than before life, because the skills that have been abyssalized will be upgraded by 1 grade. This is why Qianfeng's ancient level Abyss Withering Curse was purified. Because as long as the human figure monster has mythical purification skills in life, it can purify the ancient level Withering Curse after being abyssalized. And it is normal for so many human figure monsters gathered together in the ruins of the Demon City to have several mythical skills. In that case, let's go. It takes a long time to brush the Abyss World. Qianfeng decided to kill the first world spine first, become stronger in attributes, and then go to the remote areas of the Abyss World to brush monsters so that it would be easier to run away in an emergency. Moreover, after killing the world spine, the progress of our Blue Star Civilization's godforsaken game will be accelerated. The boss refreshes faster, and the high-level monster refreshes faster. I hope to refresh some mythical boss, Qianfeng thought to himself. He teleported to the Pure Soul Land teleportation array in the ruins of Zhonghai City in the game, rode on Asarios, and flew all the way to the canyon where the polluted river is located. Unexpectedly, this guy had sharp eyes and saw Qianfeng's gain status bar at a glance. Boss, why is there one less layer of your death praise? When did you die? Qianfeng. Have I ever told you not to ask things you shouldn't ask? Asarios thought about it seriously, and then replied, No, boss. Qianfeng. I heard about it now. Asarios. Understood. Boss, don't worry. I will never tell anyone about your death. Just as Qianfeng was riding Asarios to the polluted river, the news that Zhaoyang Civilization killed the first world spine in the 5th year of reincarnation has spread to all areas of the Land of Order. Even ordinary players in the Land of Order have learned this news. As for some top masters in the Land of Order, they are even more attracted by this news. In the Blood Source Temple, now even the Temple Master who has been out of sight has come back because of this news. Qin Wuyue and several other messengers of the Blood Source Temple bowed and saluted in front of them in a blood-colored hall, and none of them dared to slack off. These messengers of the Blood Source Temple obviously came from different civilizations, but each of them was a top master in the Land of Order, and in the direction of their salute, there was a young man with an extremely weird appearance, with a weird smile on his face. His eyes were blood red, and the most shocking thing was that he had 8 arms on his side. At this time, one of the 8 hands was holding a fist-sized red-skinned fruit. The other 7 hands were holding serrated knives, and they peeled off the fruit peel in no time. If Qianfeng was here, he would be able to recognize at a glance that this guy was actually a Starry Sky pirate, and he was also an 8-armed royal family, just like the Stealer William Scott and Qianfeng's family. But this Starry Sky pirate was obviously doing very well, and he was actually the master of the Land of Order and the Blood Source Temple. I'll tell you another piece of news. The strange young man, with a little feminine voice, said lightly, A piece of news from above. Someone took the first place in the first level of the road to the end. Now Zhaoyang's civilization has killed the first world spine. Do you think there is any connection between the two? Upon hearing this, the faces of the gods below all changed. The road to the end. The players standing here all know what that means. The gods present are not qualified to enter the Road of the End, and can only play the second-tier Road of Despair. Even those at the Palace Master level can only barely enter the Road of the End, and cannot even be ranked. And now, the first place in the first level of the Road to the End has been taken away by someone. Doesn't that mean that a terrifying and powerful person, unprecedented in history, has been born in this world, although it has not yet developed? It is destined that the Land of Order will soon be in a bloody storm, Qin Huiyue said in a deep voice. My subordinates guess that there should be little relationship between the two. The first in the End Road is unprecedented, and it is not necessary to kill the World Spine in the 5th year. Another burly 3-meter-tall envoy next to him asked in confusion. But I haven't heard of other civilizations killing the World Spine recently. Maybe that person just didn't find the World Spine, so it's delayed until now? Another bald envoy, holding a string of Buddhist beads in his hand, said lightly. It is unlikely. I also think that this person has little relationship with Jiaoyang civilization. The 8-armed royal family of the Star Pirates, the enchanting young man sneered. Whether there is a relationship or not, find all the players of Jiaoyang civilization in advance and ask about the situation. As long as there are players who may rise, all of them will be registered. Yes, many envoys looked gloomy, but they could only bow. It can be seen. The relationship between the envoys and the Hallmaster is not very harmonious, because they are essentially from different civilizations, especially Qin Huiyue. Among the many envoys in this temple, her status can be said to be the worst. The reason is not that her strength is too weak. If she is weak, it is impossible to become an envoy of the temple. The most fundamental reason is that the Blue Star civilization behind Qin Huiyue is still just a reincarnation civilization. There are a total of 12 envoys in the Blood Source Temple, 10 of whom are from the Sublimation civilization. In addition to Qin Huiyue, only another envoy is from the Reincarnation civilization. This means that Qin Huiyue does not have a big backstage behind him. In the Land of Order, entering the temple is equivalent to finding a job. No matter how high the position is, it is just a job. Only their own civilization is the real home. But the civilization that is still in reincarnation has no home at all. Unlike the Sublimation civilization, although the individuals of the civilization will die completely and cannot be resurrected, people can develop infinitely. Even players with poor talents can make up for it through time and eventually become strong. In terms of overall strength, the Samsara civilization is a mess. Only a small number of players can escape from Samsara and reach the Land of Order. Both the overall combat power and cohesion are very weak. The number and proportion of players who can reach the Land of Order in the Sublimation civilization are more than 100 times higher than that of the Samsara civilization. The Sublimation civilization is the most powerful entity in the Land of Order. The overall strength of some civilizations is even stronger than that of some temples, because it is very likely that the masters of several temples are from the same civilization. For example, the current master of the Blood Source Temple is from the Starry Sky Pirates. Then the Blood Source Temple's position is obviously biased towards the Starry Sky Pirate civilization, which is an extremely ancient race of the Sublimation civilization in the Land of Order, and its voice in the Land of Order is very important. In a sense, Qin Huiyue is now often working for the Starry Sky Pirates until the next master takes office. The position of the Blood Source Temple will change, and now in the Land of Order, there is more than one Blood Source Temple investigating the Jiaoyang civilization. If it is said that the killing of a world spine in the 5th year of Jiaoyang civilization is a rare event in a century, then the first place in the End Road was taken away, which is an unprecedented achievement, surpassing all players from ancient times to the present. This level is not even accessible to the current Land of Order. Anyone who can leave a name in the test of the End Road is basically in the Supreme Heaven now, which shows how high the level of the End Road is. The first place in the End Road was taken away, even if it was only the earliest first level. It was already an ancient event related to the historical process of the entire godforsaken game. However, the direction of everyone's investigation at present points to Jiaoyang civilization. No one has noticed the Blue Star civilization that is still unknown today. But soon, just as Qin Feng flew to the polluted river to deal with the first world spine, Blue Star, the godforsaken game world, outside the ruins of Jinling, more than 200 kilometers away, there is a pyramid ruin outside the ruins. There is a level 30 epic boss, Skyfall Godbull Muli Muli. This is a giant minotaur warrior with a height of more than 10 meters and a giant stone pillar on its shoulder. Its mechanism is not so complicated, and it is one of the easier epic bosses to fight. At this time, the Daxia official used this epic boss as a breakthrough point and planned to take the first epic kill except Shadow. In the strategy team, there are many strong people who came from all over the country, including Wanya Weiyu from Modu, You Are Dead, and Wang Meng, An Yu, Xiaohei, and so on from Zhanghai City. The boss is 20% left, and a new round of Skyfall will come soon. Be prepared. In the 60-person strategy team, each one is a top strong man in the Daxia official camp. Wanya Weiyu is in charge of the command. As for the others, the tanks held the boss as aggro. The DPS were responsible for attacking the boss, and the priests were responsible for healing. Everything seemed to be in order. Everyone was doing their job, except for one person, Gu Yishui. This girl healed her team members while taking time to attack, and she was actually in the top 5 of the team's DPS. And the top DPS of the team was Black Plum Big Plum, with 700,000 DPS. This epic boss is really tanky. The DPS of the Diamond boss before was over 2 million. but this one is only 700. The girl thought to herself. She couldn't imagine that the epic boss was so tanky. Wouldn't the legendary boss be even more tanky? Shadow could kill the legendary boss with tens or hundreds of millions of HP in 1 second. What kind of damage was that? Fortunately, we can finally capture it. The first epic boss, the Shadow God, has not killed the mythical level yet, so we have made some progress. Black Plum thought with relief, as the health of the Skyfalling God Bulmu Limu Li dropped to 20%. Huge stone platforms appeared in the sky, and these huge stone platforms fell madly towards the ground. Boom, boom, boom. No matter whether it is a tank or a DPS, they all began to avoid the sky-falling boulders. This mechanism requires extremely high speed. If the speed is not more than 100 meters per second, it is basically impossible to dodge. Once hit, the damage is a tens of millions of damage that ignores shields and defenses. And there is basically only one way to die. This stage is the most stressful. The largest team is the Stripping Team, which is a team of players equipped with a full set of stripping affixes. They are mainly responsible for stripping the upper affixes of the boss. Otherwise, this boss cannot be defeated at all. For such a boss, players need 1 or 2 years to deal with it normally. But now, it has been 2.5 months since the godforsaken game, the Daxia Official, which has received equipment support from Qinfeng, is finally going to attack the first epic boss. The boss successfully avoided the collapse of the sky for the last time, and 2 people died. The impact is not big, and we can continue to fight. Just hold on to the last wave of fury and it will pass. When the news was passed back to the rear, many officials of the Daxia Official smiled with relief, except for Shadow. The first epic first kill will be taken immediately. We can finally narrow the gap with Shadow. Just at this time, Qinfeng rode Osiris and arrived outside the ruins of Zhonghai City. Above the polluted river, the Abyss World cannot summon you. Qinfeng said to Osario, "You wait for me here." The death wings behind him spread out, and he switched to the Abyss World in the sky. A gray mist filled the air from all around, instantly covering him and bringing him to the Abyss World. Here, it is completely isolated from the game world. Originally, there were many players leveling up near the polluted river, but now they have completely disappeared. After switching to the Abyss World, Qinfeng activated the shadow perception at the first time, and could feel that there were some scattered human figures and monsters around, of all levels. The density of monsters is much higher than that on the Atlantic Ocean. But after all, it is in the wild, and these monsters are not too concentrated. However, Qinfeng did not intend to provoke it. Kill the world spine first. The death wings behind him spread out, and took him quickly into the cave where the polluted river was. The terrain of the Abyss World is the same as that of the game world, but it is more rotten and dilapidated. After Qinfeng entered the cave, he found that the polluted river filled with whispering energy in the game world was completely dried up in the Abyss World, forming a bottomless underground cave. He danced with his death wings and flew into the cave in an instant, and found that there were some flying corpses and human figures in the cave. Qinfeng could not be invisible for the time being, and was directly discovered by those monsters. They followed him one by one with roars. Kill first? Qinfeng made a decision instantly. If he didn't kill now, who knows how long these monsters would chase him? If he reached the bottom and was surrounded by a group of human figures and monsters, it would be a bit difficult to deal with. Although he could only attack normally, Qinfeng's attributes were still there. It would take at most 2 or 3 seconds to deal with the corpses of ordinary players at level 40 or 50. Just as Qinfeng was killing all the way and going deeper, he suddenly saw a familiar figure, Wang Meng L59. "Good man, I met an acquaintance." Qinfeng looked at the roaring and rotten corpse of Wang Meng and couldn't help laughing. If he hadn't been able to take out the light and shadow crystal, he really wanted to take it back to show Wang Meng, but soon Qinfeng couldn't laugh anymore, because he found that right next to Wang Meng's corpse, there appeared another Warriors player corpse codenamed Wind Chasing the Wind L66. Who is this guy? Why does he look a little familiar? Isn't this me? Qinfeng was confused. He didn't remember taking such a code name. Could it be his own self from countless reincarnations? Looking at the rotten and roaring, himself flying up, Qinfeng felt a little annoyed. He killed Wang Meng in a few strokes. This guy is really tough, although he doesn't know which reincarnation Wang Meng is from. He always plays the Holy Shield battle profession. He has the invincible skill at the beginning. After the professional advancement, he can be invincible for a longer time, and even has group invincibility. It took more than 6 seconds to kill Wang Meng. Then Qinfeng started to deal with himself. Oh my god, why am I so tanky? Qinfeng found something wrong when he attacked with the knife. The 66 level self is even tankier than the 59 level Wang Meng just now. The damage of a knife is only 1/3 of that of Wang Meng. It seems that I am really strong. Qinfeng was very emotional, although he didn't know which reincarnation he was from. Fortunately, the attack speed added by the Judgment Blade is extremely high, 25 normal attacks per second. As for the several Abyss Curse skills thrown out, they were offset by the Inviolable affix. Qinfeng didn't bother to think too much, so he attacked again and again, and killed his former self alive. I actually got a Rule Stone. As expected of me, the drop rate is really high. Qinfeng happily put away the Rule Stone. I thought I had to beat the second level of the road to the end to get the Rule Stone, but I didn't expect to get one in advance. It seems that the drop rate of materials in this Abyss world is really high. If this is combined with the Hand of Greed, Qinfeng didn't dare to think about it. It's a pity that I haven't seen any Abyss Shrine yet, otherwise Qinfeng would be very happy. Try stripping first. Qinfeng took out the Deep Sea Spirit variant blade from his backpack and used the Rule Stone on it. Originally, Qinfeng didn't have much hope, because this is the same as the stripping stone. The probability of successfully stripping the divine special effect is probably only 1/3, but I never expected. After this Rule Stone was consumed, it actually hit the soul. It actually worked. Qinfeng glanced at the Rule Stone in his hand, which contained the Divine Rule Giant Blade variant, which can be added to any divinely armed dagger. This is great. Add it directly to the White Sprout blade. Qinfeng. You only need 42 points of divinity to become bigger. Isn't it cool? Baya. As expected. Men like big things. Qinfeng. In addition to the Divine Rule of Giant Blade variant, there is also a Divine Rule of Guardian variant on the variant blade. Qinfeng thought about it and thought that this rule might be useful, and he could peel it off together at that time. In this way, the variant blade becomes a divine weapon without divine rules, but it still has divinity. If it is given to the ghost, she can consume it to offset the order effect when necessary. And the basic attributes of the weapon are also quite high, which is still a great improvement for the ghost. Hanfeng didn't think too much, just dive all the way. Although there is no water or whispering energy in the Abyss world, this pollution in the river is really bottomless. Qinfeng pushed away the gray fog all the way and dived in the narrow river. Finally, after flying more than 1,000 kilometers, he saw a clear view in front of him. Looking back, the narrow river around him was like an inconspicuous crack in the ground, and in front of him was an extremely vast space with no end in sight. So many monsters. Qinfeng just flew into this space and was shocked by the surrounding situation. Many player corpses and monsters gathered here. Switch. Leave the Abyss world. Qinfeng controlled the Abyss bracelet and evacuated quickly. The gray fog around him dissipated. Then another wave of deep sea pressure came from the surrounding. It can be felt that this is still a dark deep sea with no end in sight in reality. More than 1,000 kilometers of deep sea water. Is this really reasonable? Qinfeng's scalp was numb. There is no whispering energy in the sea. This let Qinfeng know that he had passed the range of the polluted river and came to the deeper ocean. I really didn't expect that the polluted river was more than 1,000 kilometers deep. If he walked such a long distance from the game world, he would definitely not be able to survive with his current resistance to mumbling. And when Qinfeng came to this deep sea, immediately heard the system prompt, "You have entered the combat state." Combat state. Qinfeng was confused, because his shadow perception covered dozens of kilometers around him, and he didn't find even a single monster. He tentatively threw out a shadow blade. Suddenly, a series of dense damage numbers appeared in front of him. This situation made Qinfeng take a breath. This is World Spine. Qinfeng suddenly discovered the shape of this first World Spine turned out to be the entire ocean around it. World Spine, see lore. Grade? Mythical grade unenhanced. Fuck! Qinfeng was stunned. This whole ocean was actually a boss, the first World Spine. He threw a shadow blade over, and although a lot of damage numbers appeared, he couldn't see the boss's health bar at all. A boss without a health bar. How can I beat it? Qinfeng was stunned on the spot. Before Qinfeng could react, he suddenly felt that the surrounding seawater had changed in an instant. With the naked eye, you can see that this piece of seawater is emitting a faint light blue fluorescence. This entire deep sea is the body of the first World Spine Sea. And this piece of seawater with light blue fluorescence, when Qinfeng switched back to the game world, all rushed towards him, forming waves of turbulent undercurrents. Good guy, it's coming. Qinfeng found that he couldn't see clearly with his naked eyes, and could only feel the turbulent undercurrents sweeping in from all directions with his shadow. The light blue fluorescent seawater gathered into invisible streams of water and rushed towards Qinfeng. Obviously, Qinfeng's invisibility is useless in front of this World Spine. It's normal to think about it. After all, Qinfeng is now inside the World Spine. Then how to beat this boss? Qinfeng was a little confused. Previously, he asked Big Eyes about the information of the World Spine, but Big Eyes could not tell him due to the limitation of authority. This shocked Big Eyes very much, because in its memory, in the reincarnation of civilization, it was impossible for someone to ask so many questions that he had no authority to answer. And Qinfeng's current Blue Star civilization has only entered the God-abandoned game era for more than 2 months. However, Qinfeng had no time to think about it. When the invisible water flow rushed towards him, he immediately felt that there were terrifying attacks covering him again and again. The attack frequency was as fast as 200 or 300 times per second. Every time the water flow attacked, it was like being hit hard by an invisible huge arrow, covering Qinfeng's whole body. Fortunately, the hit correction of the mythical boss of the World Spine seems to be about 20,000%, which can only increase the hit rate by 200 times. And Qinfeng's current dodge rate has reached 95%, which means that on average he can hit once in 2,000 attacks. So, even if the boss has a very high hit rate, it can only hit Qinfeng once out of every 10 attacks, and the other 9 attacks are dodged, and the dodge is triggered directly to restore full health. If it's just this level of attack, I won't even lose blood, Qinfeng thought to himself. While always alert to other changes in the surrounding seawater, every time the water flow successfully hits him, it can cause him hundreds of thousands of damage. But the next time the water flow is dodged, the gray blood bar deducted from him will be offset immediately, which is equivalent to full blood. But Qinfeng found, after being hit by the water flow more than 10 or 20 times per second, his inviolable affix is also being deducted continuously. These water flows have some negative effects. At present, the boss body cannot be found, so I will transform into a shadow first. Qinfeng is still relatively cautious. This is to avoid his inviolable affix being emptied in a while, and then having various controls and negative effects, which would be very disgusting. However, in Qinfeng's guess, the 200 or 300 water impacts per second should be aimed at a team, not at one person. If there are more players in the field, then the number of water impacts each person will bear will be less. It is equivalent to Qinfeng bearing the attack that should have been borne by a team of players. So his inviolable affix is a bit unbearable. But fortunately, his Incarnation Shadow is very powerful. He first released 10 Shadow Warps, superimposed the Overload Thunder to the full 10 layers, and released the Incarnation Shadow when the cooling time reached the fastest. I saw that his whole person instantly turned into a pure black human-shaped shadow, and suddenly entered a completely invincible state. In the case of full cooling, the original cooling time of the Incarnation Shadow was 3600 seconds, but now it only takes 97 seconds, and it can be turned around in 2 minutes. When Qinfeng turned into a shadow, the surrounding water impacts remained, but he could no longer attack any target. Qinfeng's Umbra Perception told him that the impact of the surrounding seawater not only did not weaken, but became stronger and stronger, from more than 200 times per second to 300 times, then 400 times. Finally, the water flow impact lasted for half a minute at 500 times per second. During this period, Qinfeng had been checking the surroundings and looking for the possible boss body, but he found nothing. Is it possible that I can only get beaten when I fight this boss? Qinfeng felt a little annoyed. If it wasn't for the idea of killing the world spine, he almost thought that this boss was just a test of enduring damage. It has to be said that the test of water flow impact alone is very difficult. If the players who come here to attack are not strong enough, they will not be able to pass this level and will die directly under the impact of the water flow. In the previous life, Tangjin and his team killed the Eye of the Abyss, but failed to kill the world spine. Is it because the threshold of this boss is too high? First, you have to pass through the area, like the polluted river, to reach the area where the World Spine Sea is located. And then you have to endure the baptism of water flow impact for a minute. To be honest, if it was Qinfeng, a warrior who developed to the 9th year in the previous life, he would not be able to last this minute here, unless he used the invincible effect of the divine weapon. But even he, a tank, can only use his ultimate move to resist, not to mention other players with output. It is conceivable that this boss is not prepared for ordinary players at all, although it is a mythical boss. In Qinfeng's opinion, the difficulty of attacking this mythical boss is far beyond that of ordinary mythical boss, mythic level. It just means that its value should be at the mythic level. But in terms of mechanism, it is much stronger than the general mythic level. Just when Qinfeng thought so, he suddenly felt something was wrong. Although he was in the state of Incarnation Shadow, the impact of the surrounding water flow could not affect him at all. But suddenly, he felt that his Incarnation Shadow seemed to be frozen. What's going on? I was slowed down. Hanfeng was a little confused. You know, the Incarnation Shadow is in an invincible state. Not only will it not be hurt, but it also has no collision volume. In this case, he was actually slowed down. Soon he found out. He was not just slowed down. He felt that the fluorescent blue seawater around him suddenly began to freeze, and the freezing speed of the seawater was extremely fast. Soon this deep sea turned into a completely frozen glacier. You have suffered the glacial freezing from the World Spine Sea, and all your buffs have been forcibly dispelled. When this system prompt came, Qinfeng's Incarnation Shadow was dispelled. Invisibility was dispelled, and the whole person was frozen in this deep sea. Looking out, a light blue fluorescent glacier completely enveloped Qinfeng. His shadow state was forcibly cancelled. At the same time, his body was completely frozen in the glacier, unable to make any movements equivalent to being unable to use any skills. After all, in the God-Forsaken game, any active skills and effects have release actions, and not being able to make any movements is equivalent to not being able to release any skills. At the same time, Qinfeng began to bear higher and higher ice attribute damage, and this damage ignored dodge and was definitely a hit. Fortunately, the divine armor ring that the Frost Ice Scorpion dropped on me provides additional ice attribute damage reduction. Qinfeng was quite optimistic at first, with the additional ice attribute damage reduction. The ice attribute damage he initially received was negligible. Of course, this is not only due to Qinfeng's ice attribute reduction, but also to his solid defense attribute, because as a mythical world spine boss, its attack naturally comes with extremely high elemental penetration. If there is no solid defense attribute, the player's basic elemental resistance is useless in front of this bot. Fortunately, Qinfeng has 36% solid defense. A simple comparison is, without solid defense, Hanfeng will receive 1549 of the ice attribute damage. But with solid defense, Qinfeng will eventually receive 19163 of the ice attribute damage. This shows the terrifying effect of solid defense. Of course, This is also because Qinfeng's basic elemental resistance is too high, otherwise the effect would not be so significant. In this case, even if the opponent's basic ice damage exceeds 100 million, when it hits Qinfeng, the ice damage Qinfeng will eventually suffer will be reduced by 59163 times. Although from a mathematical point of view, reduction in reduction cannot be described by multiples. But this description method is obviously more intuitive. Otherwise, in the later stage, everyone's defense, elemental resistance, and damage reduction are basically 99%. And it is difficult to intuitively feel how strong the damage reduction effect is. 1690 environmental damage, 3380 environmental damage, 5d70 environmental damage, 6760 environmental damage. At first, the surrounding environment frozen into a glacier did not cause much damage to Qinfeng, but as time passed, the damage became higher and higher. This ice attribute damage doubles every second. Qinfeng felt his blood loss and was a little shocked. According to his ice damage reduction, Qinfeng calculated that the basic damage of ice damage in this environment is 100 million, 200 million in the second, and 300 million in the third second. According to this situation, even if Qinfeng has 2 million health points, he will basically die around the 50th second. Under the condition of being unable to move and unable to release any active effects, Qinfeng couldn't even switch the function of the Abyss Bracelet. Can I just watch my blood drop and die? Huanfeng pondered quickly. He suddenly recalled the extremely cold ice scorpion he had fought before. In fact, the extremely cold ice scorpion also has a similar mechanism. After carving ice flowers to freeze people, the ice flowers can only be broken from the outside. But the freezing of the extremely cold ice scorpion does not have force dispersal. Compared with the glacier of the spine of this world, it is completely not of the same level. Could it be that my glacier can only be broken from the outside? Qinfeng was a little dumbfounded. After all this time, this boss still discriminates against solo players. He felt that the glacier that froze him was about 10 meters in diameter and was in an irregular spherical shape. He was frozen in the middle of the ice ball and could not move at all. If it can only be broken from the outside, it's a bit outrageous. Qinfeng could do nothing now. He could only watch his gray blood bar grow more and more. And then after 3 seconds, it was officially deducted from his health value. But even so, Qinfeng persisted for 50 seconds. Finally, he was frozen to death in the increasing ice damage. Qinfeng himself did not expect that he would die twice in a short period of time. First, he was beaten to death by the corpse of Brother Beidou in the Abyss world, and then he was frozen to death by the spine of this world. However, death is indeed a normal thing when the level is higher in the future. After all, the bosses and situations I will encounter in the future are all those I have never encountered in my previous life. Qinfeng was not in a hurry. Anyway, the Death Praise gift guarantees 3 resurrections at least, and there is also 1 resurrection of the Ascension machine. He didn't believe that he couldn't kill a world spine with so many lives, and the fact proved that with his current combat power. It didn't take 4 lives to conquer the world spine. When he was frozen to death by the glacier, the surrounding glaciers broke apart. Qinfeng was resurrected on the spot, with full health, full mana, and full status. Then, Qinfeng opened the Shadow of Killing without thinking. The 5 shadow clones instantly flew out to the surrounding shadow fold. If Qinfeng was frozen by the glacier again, his shadow clones could help him break the glacier. The same method could not let Qinfeng die a second time. When Qinfeng was resurrected and created 5 shadow clones to fly out, he felt that the surrounding seawater was frozen again. And this time, it formed a head of ice crystal sculptures, marine creatures carved out of ice. Health bar. Qinfeng didn't see what kind of marine creatures they were at first, but he saw the health bars on their heads. This finally made Qinfeng excited. The real boss is finally here. Qinfeng was a little eager to try, but soon he found that there seemed to be a lot of ice crystal creatures around. There are ice crystal octopuses, ice crystal sharks, ice crystal lobsters, ice crystal crab, ice crystal jellyfish, ice crystal electric eels, all kinds of creatures that have existed in the ocean of Blue Star, in addition to the health bars. There are also some name tags on the heads of these ice crystal marine creatures, all of which are part of the incarnation of the mythical boss, World Spine Sea. There are more than 30 ice crystal creatures in total, and the health value of each ice crystal creature has reached 10 to 120 million. It doesn't look that difficult to kill. But Qinfeng knows that since they are the incarnations of the mythical boss, these ice crystal creatures must have the attribute of solid defense. It can be seen from Qinfeng himself. With or without solid defense, the degree of resistance is completely different. The degree of resistance is at least dozens of times higher. What's more, the damage reduction of mythical boss will be higher. The damage reduction is even more terrifying. But it's okay with my current damage level. Most mythical bosses are killed in seconds, unless there are special mechanisms or divine rules. These are just small monsters. Let's kill them in seconds. Qinfeng's original burst could cause nearly 100 billion damage to legendary bosses. Even if these mythical ice crystal creatures have higher damage reduction, with only 10 and 120 million health bars, they can't withstand Qinfeng's attack at all. The next moment, Qinfeng directly shadow jumped in front of an ice crystal crayfish. In fact, although this creature looks like a crayfish, it is very big, with a body length of more than 10 meters. It should be called a supergiant lobster. This crayfish felt Qin Feng approaching and retreated immediately, trying to spit ice balls at Qin Feng. But Qin Feng was faster, holding 2 daggers. He followed him like a shadow and burst out damage twice in an instant. Instant annihilation. Instant annihilation. 30, 57 million weak point attack. 176 billion weak point attack. You killed Ice Crystal Incarnation, World Spine, CL40. Just killed the first one. At this time, the remaining 31 ice crystal creatures around him sprayed ice and water attribute attacks at Qin Feng from a distance. The water attributed attack created a deep sea vortex in the seawater, which continuously sucked Qin Feng, but was blocked by Qin Feng's inviolable affix. The ice attributed attack was a series of glacier freezing track. The attacks of 31 ice crystal creatures were too dense, and they just took advantage of Qin Feng's attack, so Qin Feng could not dodge. He was hit by one of the glacier tracks on the spot. With the endless crisp freezing sound, Clan Feng found that he was hit by the glacier and was frozen again. Fortunately, I was prepared this time. Qin Feng did not hesitate at all. Although he could not use any skills, he was not silenced after all. Even if his body was frozen and could not move, he could still issue a command to use skills, but the skills would fail to use. But as long as the command was issued, the shadow clones around him would release their skills. Suddenly, the shadow clones around him issued a command, and each of them threw a shadow blade over. Click, click, click. The glacier that had just frozen him was shattered and cracked by the attack. In this deep sea area, 31 remaining ice crystal incarnations began to spit various long-range attacks at Qin Feng. Once formed, each deep sea whirlpool will last for 12 seconds. Within 12 seconds, Qin Feng's inviolable affix was continuously reduced. But fortunately, when Qin Feng was moving, his inviolable affix recovery speed increased by 10 times, which came from the order effect slippery attached to his shoes. It's really abnormal. The ordinary attack of these ice crystal incarnations is to spray ice. Once frozen, they can't move at all. That freezing is a mechanism at the level of divine rules, and even Qin Feng's order can't resist it. Despicable Terminator and Sniper Invalidation, these two very good life-saving methods, are temporarily completely ineffective. In the deep sea area, ice glaciers are interlaced, and Qin Feng is moving around in them. And he doesn't even have time to use the Bone Eviscerating Blade. If Qin Feng uses the Bone Eviscerating Blade on these ice crystal incarnations, his damage can be increased by at least 10 times. Fortunately, these ice crystal incarnations have low health points, so Qin Feng can kill them instantly. After letting the shadow clone thaw him, the death wings behind Qin Feng moved, and he flashed to the front of an ice crystal jellyfish again. Instant kill. Instant kill. Kill another one. Unfortunately, Qin Feng was frozen again. Then he was rescued by the shadow clone again. This cycle repeats, and the number of mythical ice crystal incarnations in the field is getting smaller and smaller. What Qin Feng regrets is that these incarnations disappear after death, and they are not considered monsters at all, so he cannot be greedy. 16 heads, 15 heads, 14 heads. When there were only 9 ice crystal incarnations left, Qin Feng suddenly discovered that the health bars on the heads of the 9 ice crystal incarnations of different shapes suddenly disappeared. Use this trick. Hide the health bar. Qin Feng is in pain. If it was just the bloodlock state of the gray blood bar, Qin Feng could try to use the upper affix to skip the bloodlock stage. But the opponent directly hit the blood bar and turned into an environmental unit. Then how can we fight? But the 9-headed ice crystal incarnation, after losing the blood bar, still tirelessly sprayed water and ice at Qin Feng. Qin Feng kept dodging, but the deep sea vortex that sucked in a large area made his inviolable affix less and less. Finally, Qin Feng's inviolable affix was reduced to 0. After leaving the control-free state, Qin Feng was quickly sucked over by one of the deep sea vortices, and there were glaciers following closely behind him. It can be imagined that once he was sucked in, he would be infinitely frozen to death, because no better way has been found yet. Qin Feng turned into a shadow again. Although the frozen glacier can dispel all his buffs, the deep sea vortex cannot. So after Qin Feng transformed into a shadow, he continued to flee in the field, avoiding the ice crystals sprayed by the ice crystal incarnations. After holding on for about half a minute, Qin Feng felt that in the deep sea directly below, the outline of a boundless giant appeared again. That is, the core incarnation of the World Spine Sea. Qin Feng's Umbra perception told him that a boundless whale appeared below him. The blood bar of the whale was 8 billion, and the whole body was surrounded by light blue fluorescence, which looked magnificent. A kind of oppression from a giant in the deep sea, directly full, even if Qin Feng's Umbra perception can cover dozens of kilometers around. At this moment, he can't feel how big the whale is. Even if there is no Umbra perception, Qin Feng would not know that the huge monster is in the shape of a whale. 8 billion health points. Even if this big guy's defense, solid defense, and damage reduction are as similar to those of the ice crystal incarnations just now, I still have to burst out 10 times the damage to kill him. 10 times the damage, God knows how many mechanisms there are in between. Qin Feng frowned. There's a simplest way. That is the Bone Eviscerating Blade. which directly invalidates 2 of the target's damage reduction. As long as the bone eviscerating blade hits, the subsequent damage will definitely kill this big guy in 1 second. But the key is, there are also 9 ice crystal incarnations of different shapes, spraying ice next to them. The bone eviscerating blade needs to be charged for 3 seconds, although it is invincible when charging. The frozen glaciers sprayed by those ice crystals can completely ignore the invincible divine rule mechanism. To put it simply, in front of the frozen glacier, all defensive means are useless, and once Qinfeng is frozen, the charging of the bone eviscerating blade will be interrupted. However, Qinfeng did not give up the idea of killing this whale in 1 second. Fish's thoughts? This big whale is the core incarnation of the world's spine. The sea, it has many skills, and even many skills of divine rules. The normal process will be quite complicated to fight. It's not that it can't be beaten, but why go through the mechanism when you can kill it instantly? I finally met a boss that is big enough. Deathwing Angel. The damage bonus of Shadow Follow can finally be maxed out. Since obtaining the Deathwing Angel's Shadow Follow skill, Qinfeng rarely maxed out this passive damage, because Qinfeng's attack must hit the target. His speed cannot be much faster than the opponent. Otherwise, Qinfeng would have jumped more than 1,000 meters away, and the attack would have directly deviated hundreds of meters. But now, this big whale is really too big. Qinfeng can launch attacks while moving, even in the process of moving at full speed, and all attacks can hit the target accurately. In addition, the head of this whale is several kilometers in diameter. After the weakness is magnified more than 10 times, this area of dozens of kilometers is the weakness of the whale. Awesome. Qinfeng held the Judgment Blade and the White Bud Blade in his hands, and the whole person instantly lifted the Shadow State. Just when the whale was about to launch a skill on Qinfeng from the bottom up, Qinfeng took the initiative. Looking back, he was a robbery master, stealing more than 8,000 points of 4-dimensional attributes. Immediately afterwards, his Deathwings drew 8 black lines in this fluorescent blue sea, and in an instant, they crossed a distance of more than 1,000 meters, bringing 2 instantaneous sword lights. These 2 swords completely took advantage of the shadow-like damage bonus of the Deathwing Angel. 1,000%, 10 times the damage increase, 514 million weak point attack, 789 billion weak point attack. You killed the core incarnation, World Spine. Seal 40. The blood bar on the head of the supergiant whale that spanned dozens of kilometers was instantly emptied. The big guy just opened his mouth and wanted to release some skills to Qinfeng, but he was taken away by 2 knives and shattered into ice crystals on the spot. No. Let me touch it first. Qinfeng made a prompt decision. Put away the dagger and released the greedy hand towards the broken ice crystals of the surrounding whales. Ding! The beautiful and pleasant prompt sounded, allowing Qinfeng to find a long-lost sense of satisfaction. However, Qinfeng did not stay there for too long. He found that when he killed the core incarnation of the world spine, the surrounding seawater began to condense into ice. Before the surrounding seawater completely condensed into glaciers, Qinfeng picked up all the spoils on the field, and then used the teleportation stone to go home. At the same time, the system prompt that Qinfeng killed the world spine sounded in the minds of all players around the world. Not only that, the news that the first world spine of the Blue Star civilization was killed also spread to the temples in the Land of Order. Land of Order. Blood Source Temple. Main Hall. The 8-armed royal palace master of the Starry Sky Pirates clan rarely comes back, so he is still discussing some other issues with Qin Wuiyue and other temple envoys. They haven't disbanded yet. Then a heavy and loud bell sounded from the depths of their temple. This bell sound, everyone's face changed slightly, including Qin Wuiyue, who heard what the bell sound represented. This is another civilization and reincarnation that killed the backbone of the world. In every ancient god temple in the Land of Order, there is a civilization hall with a big bell in the hall. The bell sound will bring a lot of news about various reincarnation worlds, sublimated civilizations, and some wild worlds. The bell sound for each kind of news is different, and the current bell sound sends someone to see if Zhao Yang civilization killed the second world spine. The 8-armed royal hallmaster of the Starry Sky Pirates continued to take out a red fruit and peeled it with 7 hands. A slightly interested look appeared in his strange red eyes. Qin Wuiyue and others were also nervous. To be able to kill 2 world spines in a row in just 3 days. If it is really Zhao Yang civilization, then this civilization may really kill 5 world spines and forcibly sublimate. This civilization has a top team, and a top team must be led by a top strongman. At present, there are 3 people from Zhao Yang civilization in the main hall of our Blood Source Temple. We can ask them for information and see if anyone has shown this level of potential during their reincarnation. Everyone was talking about it. But soon, a message came out on the core management channel of the Blood Source Temple. The strong man of the Blood Source Temple who spread the message had a trembling voice when he said the news. The news from the Civilization Hall. It was the Blue Star civilization that killed the world spine this time. Blue Star civilization. As soon as the news came out, the faces of several people in the field, including Qin Wuiyue, changed instantly. What? Blue Star civilization? Are you kidding me? Qin Wuiyue was dumbfounded, and doubt, confusion, and shock immediately appeared in his blood-red eyes. This scene was seen by the 8-armed hallmaster of the Starry Sky Pirates. The strange eyes fell on Qin Wuiyue, and he asked lightly, Qin Wuye? Blue Star Civilization. Isn't it the civilization you belong to? Your civilization killed the world spine. This is good news, obviously. There are too many civilizations in this world, and the 8-armed Hallmaster does not know the reincarnation of the Blue Star Civilization. It is because Qin Wuye comes from the Blue Star Civilization that the Hallmaster can have a little impression of the Blue Star Civilization, and, in fact, for the 8-armed Hallmaster, Qin Wuye is essentially looked down upon, because in the culture he has been exposed to since childhood. The more arms one has, the more noble one is. He has been a member of the royal family of the Star Pirates Intiad since he was a child, and he treats ordinary humans with 2 arms as slaves. Although his impression has changed after he came to the Land of Order, he still cannot avoid discrimination against ordinary humans. And hearing the words of the 8-armed Palace Master, Qin Wuye's face was still shocked. She looked at the 8-armed Palace Master with a strange temperament in front of her, slowly opened her mouth, and said a message. The Palace Master does not know the Blue Star Civilization. This is indeed my civilization. It is not the first time to kill the world spine, but every time before, the first world spine was killed after the 7th year.
But
the current Blue Star Civilization, this reincarnation has only started for less than 3 months. As soon as these words came out, the 8-armed Palace Master, who originally did not know the truth, and other temple messengers who did not know the Blue Star Civilization, all froze. Duojo. The bald-headed envoy holding the Buddhist beads in his hand was a young man with blood-colored tattoos all over his body. This guy looked like a savage, but his combat power was definitely not to be ignored. He was a terrifying existence that ranked in the top 3 in comprehensive combat power in the Blood Source Temple, except for the Palace Master. When the bald-headed envoy heard Qin Wuye's words, his eyes popped out, and he looked incredulous. Less than 3 months. Are you kidding? Until then, the strong man who passed the news in the Civilization Hall finally added a sentence, and his voice was still shocked and trembling. To be precise, it was the 75th day since the beginning of the reincarnation, according to the Blue Star time. It was 2.5 months. Boom! 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 The sound of something falling to the ground sounded in the main hall. Everyone turned their heads stiffly and found that it was the red fruit in the hands of the 8-armed Palace Master. It fell to the ground, bounced several times, and finally rolled to the side. Swish, swish, swish. The 8-armed Palace Master instantly put away the fruit knives in the 7 hands. On his strange face, he seemed calm, but in fact he had started to cramp. His eyes were solemn, and he asked in the channel very solemnly, on the 75th day, kill the first world spine. After getting a positive answer, the 8-armed Palace Master could no longer control his temper and cursed on the spot. Is this the reincarnation of the ancient god? The whole audience was silent. After several seconds of silence, the 8-armed Hallmaster was the first to react. Right, that's right. The first world spine was killed on the 75th day. Such a guy deserves the first place in the end road. It's him. It's him. This Hallmaster was thinking before that the Jiaoyang civilization killed the first world spine in the 5th year. If it is the people of the Jiaoyang civilization who broke the first level record of the end road, how terrifying would their combat power be? Now I can understand it. Because the Blue Star Civilization has only been reincarnated for a short time, and entering the end road is time-weighted. There were no other relevant clues before, so they could only investigate the Jiaoyang Civilization first. But now, this 8-armed Hallmaster directly threw the Jiaoyang Civilization behind his mind. If the Jiaoyang Civilization killed the world spine in the 5th year, it was a rare event in a century. Then killing the first world spine on the 75th day was unprecedented from ancient times to the present? Qin Wuye. Blue Star Civilization is your hometown? Thinking of this, the 8-armed Hallmaster of the Starry Sky Pirates looked at Qin Wuye with some respect. Have you ever thought about who that strong man would be? How is your relationship with him? At this time, Qin Wuye was naturally at a loss. Who is he? In the 2nd month of reincarnation, Blue Star Civilization won the first place in the first level of the end road. In the 3rd month of reincarnation, the first world spine was killed. Who could it be? Qin Wuye didn't know. She couldn't think of anyone in Blue Star Civilization who had such potential and was so terrifying. Even if she had obtained a small authority when she first entered the game, it would not have developed to such an outrageous degree, obviously. The level of the Land of Order is still a little low, and they don't know that the true descendants of the ancient god's authority can exist with reincarnation. Small authority will be gone when you die. But if it is the real original authority due to the extremely complex conditions and high difficulty of obtaining it, once obtained, it is truly bound to the soul, and it can continue to exist in the player even if the civilization reincarnates. Of course, normally, even if a person has obtained great authority, his memory will be cleared when he reincarnates. Only Qin Feng. He is an exception, and neither Qin Wuye nor the 8-armed Hallmaster of the Star Thief clan know this. I'm sorry, I don't know who it is. Qin Wuye shook her head and answered the Hallmaster. At the same time, she was thinking in her mind, who could that guy be? Is he from Daxia? Or from other countries? North America? India? Bear? Western countries? She couldn't guess at all, and had no clue. We can start the investigation based on the variables of the last reincarnation. The 8-armed Palace Master had a solemn look on his face. How many people came to the Land of Order in the last reincarnation of Blue Star?
How many were exiled?
Kinwuya said in a deep voice. In the last reincarnation, there were 4 people who arrived in the Land of Order, and 2 returned. Of the 2 who did not return, 1 died in the wild of the Land of Order, and the other came to the Land of Order through the Temple of Judgment and has joined the Temple of Judgment. As for the exiled, it is not clear. There is no relevant record. Being exiled means being sent to other civilizations as NPCs. If the weak are exiled, they will be deprived of their sanity and become low-level boss, or monsters with only the desire to survive and plunder life, as well as strong fighting instincts. In addition to the people who came to the Land of Order, there are also these exiled people, who are all variables that exist in every reincarnation of civilization. There will even be players from other civilizations who will be randomly inserted into the civilization's reincarnation and become new NPCs or monsters. Due to the complexity of the specific situation, it is impossible to accurately know and calculate the specific variables of a civilization's reincarnation. Blue Star Civilization is your hometown. This matter will be left to you to investigate. The 8-armed palace master thought for a while and said to Kinwuya in a deep voice, "It is best to ensure that the strong man can enter our blood source temple." Kinwuya nodded seriously. Understood. And everyone present knew how important this matter would be for the entire Land of Order. It is an unstoppable storm. The temple messengers have privately chatted with their subordinates and their civilization. If there is a conflict with the players of Blue Star Civilization, as long as it is not a big grudge, forget it. Of course, since they did not know the camp of the strongman of Blue Star Civilization, they did not rashly let anyone show goodwill to the players of Blue Star Civilization. After all, a civilization is not a monolithic entity, especially those who came from the Samsara civilization. They were generally hostile to other races in the civilization. This would only change slowly after staying in the Land of Order for a long enough time. For example, there were temple envoys who had a good relationship with Kinwuya, and they knew that Kinwuya was from Daxia of the Blue Star Civilization, and was not the same as countries like Tianju and North America. Therefore, it was not appropriate for them to show goodwill rashly. The best thing to do was to wait and see, at least not to offend. In addition, the attitude of the temple envoys in this temple towards Kinwuya also became a little unpredictable. They were not sure whether the strongman of the Blue Star Civilization was from Daxia, where Kinwuya was. Everyone had their own considerations, and the same was true for Kinwuya. Blue Star. Kinwuya was brainstorming. Who could this unprecedented, terrifying genius be? Could it be Qinfeng? Mindfang's gaming talent has always been strong, and he has also gained some authority before. It is possible that this genius is Qinfeng. If it is really him, then his potential for reincarnation this time is really terrifying. For me, this is a good thing. Anyway, he doesn't know that every time I reincarnate, I go back to kill him and Qin Xiaoyu. And no one in the Land of Order knows that I will go back to do this every time I reincarnate. As long as he sets foot in the Land of Order, I will be his good sister. There are 2 iron rules for the reincarnation of civilizations. The first iron rule is that before a civilization is successfully sublimated, people from any other civilization cannot go to that civilization. So no matter what stage it is, as long as Blue Star is in the reincarnation process and has not sublimated, then players from other civilizations will have no way to go. You cannot go to Blue Star in the Blue Star game area, unless you go to Blue Star Civilization through exile and become an NPC or monster boss. However, even if these NPCs or high-level bosses know a lot of information about the Land of Order and the reincarnation of civilization, they are not allowed to reveal it. Otherwise, there will be extremely severe punishment. The second iron rule is that before the 9th year of each civilization, no one can go to the civilization. This is mainly a restriction. The strong who graduated from the civilization and went to the Land of Order cannot return to the civilization before the 9th year to interfere with the civilization process. Unless the civilization returns to the 9th year, it enters the sublimation challenge stage where reality and the game merge. At this stage, if you are a strong person from the Land of Order of the civilization, you can go back to participate in the sublimation challenge if you meet the condition. It should be noted that if the players who go back at this stage fail the sublimation challenge of the civilization, they will enter the reincarnation with the civilization. Once they go back, they cannot leave under normal circumstances and can only coexist and perish with the civilization. In addition to these 2 iron rules, there is an additional rule which can be broken in certain circumstances. This additional rule is, if you want to return to civilization and help sublimate, you need to meet a condition that you have never used the Heart of Order. Once the players of the civilization have used the Heart of Order, they are sublimators and are separated from the original civilization. Such sublimators cannot return to the civilization unless they wait until the civilization is successfully sublimated. Then they can belong to the civilization again. As for the Heart of Order, it is a precious item that can only be produced in the Land of Order. Using the Heart of Order, you can integrate the order effect on the equipment into your body, similar to integrating divinity into yourself. The same principle. But it is not so advanced. You can only absorb and fuse the order. To fuse the first order, you need to consume 1 heart of order. To fuse the second order, you need 2 hearts of order, and so on. as long as you can get enough Hearts of Order. Then the player can make the order on his body stack unlimitedly. It can be said that when you arrive at the Land of Order, you can't avoid the Heart of Order. If you want to improve your strength, you must integrate the Heart of Order. Otherwise, the number of order is too small, and you will be at an extreme disadvantage when facing the enemy. So, it is not very realistic to go back to help sublimate through multiple reincarnations, like the War Civilization, to become stronger in the Land of Order. You have to use the Heart of Order, but if you use the Heart of Order, you can no longer return to the civilization to help sublimate. This is a very contradictory rule. If you want to gather enough strong people to go back together, unless these strong people go to the Land of Order, all give up becoming stronger, and wait for 10, 20, 30 years or even longer. Then one situation is very obvious. Qin Wuyue's ability to return to the Blue Star in the Sublimation Challenge is completely a special case. Of course, she couldn't give up using the Heart of Order to become stronger without violating the 2 iron rules. She could quietly return to Blue Star after the 9th year through her small authority and her own talents, and quietly kill all the returning strongmen, thus ensuring that Blue Star's sublimation failed. And those who knew what she did would reset their memories and reincarnate again after the reincarnation of civilization. Therefore, no one else knew what she did. She naturally thought, if the super genius of Blue Star Civilization now is Qin Feng, then when Qin Feng leads Blue Star Civilization to forcibly sublimate, she can completely appear in front of Qin Feng as a good sister. With such a big thigh, her first reaction, of course, is to hold the thigh tightly. It's a pity that such a genius appeared on Blue Star. This time, he may be sublimated. I can't reincarnate in the future. And I can't brush Qin Feng and Qin Xiaoyu. But even for such a genius, it is not so easy to successfully kill the 4th and 5th world spines. Maybe he will die directly, Qin Wuyu thought to himself. At the same time, in the Blood Source Temple, the strong men standing at the top of the entire Orderland discussed this issue. The news that the Blue Star Civilization killed the 1st world spine on the 75th day spread throughout the entire Orderland in an instant. Before, Zhaoyang Civilization killed the world spine in the 5th year, and the spread was not large. But this time, the news of the killing from the Blue Star Civilization directly shocked the entire Orderland, including those from the Blue Star Civilization scattered throughout the Orderland, a powerful person. After receiving this news, everyone was shocked. What's going on? Our Blue Star Civilization is going to produce a powerful person.